"Pretend to be my boyfriend," she begged a stranger, unaware he was a millionaire CEO who'd change her life forever. Harper's hands trembled as she watched Marcus cross the ballroom toward her, that familiar smirk plastered on his face, his new girlfriend, a model, of course, draped on his arm like an expensive accessory. 6 months since he'd told her she was too ordinary for his world, and here he was, ready to humiliate her again. Panic rose in her throat. She couldn't face him alone, not here, not in front of everyone. Without thinking, she grabbed the arm of the man beside her, tall, impeccably dressed, quietly sipping champagne alone. "Please," she whispered urgently, "pretend to be my boyfriend. Just for 5 minutes. I'll explain later, I promise." The stranger's grey eyes studied her for a heartbeat, taking in her desperation, her borrowed dress, her authentic fear. Then, surprising them both, he set down his glass and slipped his arm around her waist with practiced ease. "Darling," he said loud enough for Marcus to hear, his voice rich with authority, "I've been looking everywhere for you." Harper's breath caught. The stranger's presence was magnetic, commanding. Marcus stopped mid-stride, his smirk faltering. And in that moment, Harper had no idea she'd just asked one of New York's most powerful CEOs to be her fake boyfriend. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more stories about unexpected love and second chances. 6 months earlier, Harper Lane had thought she was building a future. She'd been dating Marcus Bradford for 2 years. 2 years of trying to fit into his world of country clubs and charity galas, of designer clothes she couldn't afford, and conversations about trust funds she'd never have. "You're so refreshing," Marcus used to say. "So real, compared to the women I usually date." She'd thought it was a compliment. Later, she'd understand it was a warning. The breakup had been brutal in its casualness. They'd been at his apartment, the penthouse his father had bought him, when he'd simply announced it was over. "Harper, we need to talk about us." She'd been sketching design ideas for his office, excited to show him how she could transform the cold space into something warm. "What about us?" "This isn't working anymore." "What do you mean?" "I mean..." He'd sighed, like explaining to a child. "You're lovely, Harper, really. But let's be honest, you don't fit in my world. The way you dress, the way you talk about your little design projects, your background, it's all very quaint. But I need someone who belongs. Belongs. At the club, at business dinners. Someone who understands the references, who went to the right schools, who can hold their own with my mother's friends. I've been doing that for 2 years. You've been trying. There's a difference." He'd stood, already distancing himself. "Veronica Ashford is back from Milan. We've been talking and it just makes sense. Our families have been friends for generations. She understands my world because it's her world too." Harper had sat there, sketchpad in her lap, feeling herself shrink with each word. "So 2 years meant nothing." "It meant something. You're a sweet girl, Harper. You'll make someone very happy. Someone more suited to you." She'd left with as much dignity as she could muster, but she'd cried for weeks afterward. Not just for losing Marcus, but for the way he'd made her feel. Like she was a temporary amusement, a tourist in his life, never quite good enough to be permanent. She'd thrown herself into work after that. Freelance interior design wasn't lucrative, but it was hers. She had talent, she knew that, but talent didn't pay rent in New York. She took whatever projects she could get. Small apartments, tiny offices, anyone who needed space transformed on a budget. Her studio apartment in Brooklyn was her sanctuary and her portfolio. Every inch thoughtfully designed despite the limited space and cheaper materials. It was beautiful in its intentionality, even if it would never grace a magazine cover. When Sophia's invitation arrived, her childhood friend from Ohio who'd somehow landed a real estate mogul, Harper had almost declined. But Sophia had insisted. "Please come, Harper. I need actual friends there, not just Bradley's business associates. And you never know. You might make some connections for your design business." So Harper had borrowed a dress from her neighbor, practiced walking in heels she rarely wore, and told herself she could handle one night of pretending she belonged. She hadn't expected Marcus to be there. The moment she'd seen him across the ballroom, her carefully constructed confidence had crumbled. He looked exactly the same, golden-haired, conventionally handsome, carrying himself with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never had to earn anything. And on his arm was Veronica Ashford, everything Harper wasn't. Tall, blonde, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Harper made in 6 months. Harper had tried to avoid them, staying on the opposite side of the ballroom, but Marcus had spotted her. She saw the moment he recognized her, the slight widening of his eyes, then that familiar smirk. He'd whispered something to Veronica, who'd looked over and laughed. They were coming toward her. That's when panic had taken over. She couldn't face them alone, couldn't stand there while Marcus patronized her, while Veronica looked at her with barely concealed amusement. The man beside her had been standing alone, observing the party with what looked like polite boredom. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that was perfectly styled, but somehow looked like he'd run his hands through it. His suit was clearly custom-made, charcoal gray that fit him perfectly. But it was his eyes that made her choose him. Gray, intelligent, and somehow kind despite his imposing presence. "Please," she'd whispered, grabbing his arm. "Pretend to be my boyfriend, just for 5 minutes. I'll explain later, I promise." What would you have done in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Grayson Wolfe had been contemplating leaving the party when the woman grabbed his arm. He'd only come because his business partner, Richard, had insisted he needed to network and be seen. But Grayson had no patience for these events anymore. The false smiles, the calculating conversations, everyone wanting something from him. He'd been watching the woman earlier, noticed how she moved through the crowd like she was apologizing for taking up space. She was beautiful in an understated way. Dark hair pinned up to reveal an elegant neck, hazel eyes that seemed to take in everything, a dress that was clearly borrowed but which she wore with determination. When she grabbed his arm, desperation clear in her voice, he'd made a split-second decision. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was the genuine fear in her eyes. Maybe it was the way she'd said please, like she expected him to refuse. "Darling," he'd said, loud enough for the approaching couple to hear. "I've been looking everywhere for you." The relief that flooded her face was worth whatever inconvenience this might cause. He slipped his arm around her waist, noting how perfectly she fit against his side, and turned to face the couple who'd caused her panic. The man was exactly the type Grayson despised. Inherited wealth worn like a badge of honor, casual cruelty disguised as sophistication. The woman beside him was beautiful in the way money could buy, but her eyes were cold, calculating. "Marcus," the woman beside him, Harper, though he didn't know her name yet, said with forced calm. "Veronica, I didn't expect to see you here." "Harper," Marcus's voice dripped with false warmth. "What a surprise. I didn't know Sophia invited everyone." The insult was subtle but clear. Grayson felt Harper tense beside him. "She invited the people who matter to her," Grayson said smoothly. "Quality over quantity, though I suppose some people prefer the opposite approach." He looked pointedly at Veronica, then back to Marcus. "I don't believe we've met," Marcus said, extending his hand with the confidence of someone used to being the most important person in the room. "Marcus Bradford, Bradford Real Estate." Grayson didn't take his hand. "No, we haven't met. And Bradford Real Estate, that's your father's company, isn't it?" Marcus's hand dropped, his smile tightening. "It's the family business." "Ah, family business." Grayson's tone was neutral, but somehow it made the words sound like an insult. "How nice to have something handed to you." "And you are?" Marcus pressed, clearly irritated. "With Harper," Grayson said simply. "That's all that matters." He felt Harper lean into him slightly. Whether for show or genuine support, he wasn't sure. But something protective stirred in him, unexpected and fierce. "Harper, you never mentioned you were seeing someone," Veronica said, her tone suggesting she didn't believe it. "Harper doesn't feel the need to broadcast her personal life," Grayson answered for her. "Some of us prefer to keep precious things private, rather than turning them into social media spectacles." It was a direct hit, Veronica was notorious for documenting every moment of her life online. "How did you two meet?" Marcus asked, clearly fishing for holes in their story. Harper started to speak, but Grayson squeezed her waist gently. "Harper redesigned my office," he said, which would be true soon enough if he had anything to say about it. "I was impressed by her vision, even more impressed when I realized she had the talent to execute it. But what really caught my attention was her authenticity. It's so rare to find someone genuine in a world full of people trying to be something they're not." He looked directly at Marcus on that last sentence. "Harper's little design projects," Marcus said with a condescending laugh. "Still playing with color swatches?" "Playing?" Grayson's voice dropped, taking on an edge that made Marcus step back slightly. "Harper's work transforms spaces. She sees potential where others see limitations. Her little projects have more creativity and value than anything I've seen from so-called established designers who rely on their name rather than their talent." "You seem very invested," Marcus said, clearly trying to regain control. "I invest in things of value," Grayson replied. "Real value, not inflated prices based on family names and old money connections." Harper's hand found his, squeezing gratefully. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through him. "We should go," Veronica said, tugging on Marcus's arm. She recognized power when she saw it, even if she didn't know who Grayson was. "Enjoy your evening," Grayson said dismissively, already turning back to Harper. "Darling, you promised me a dance." As Marcus and Veronica retreated, Harper looked up at him with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. "That was incredible. Thank you." "He's an ass," Grayson said simply, "and he's wrong about you. You don't even know me." "I know enough." He studied her face, noting the way she tried to hide her vulnerability behind a brave smile. "Would you like to get some air? You look like you could use it." She nodded, and he led her to the terrace, his hand still on her waist. Outside, the city sparkled below them, and Harper finally seemed to breathe. "I'm Harper," she said. "Harper Lane, and I'm sorry for dragging you into that." "Grayson," he replied, deliberately leaving off his last name. "And don't apologize. That was the most interesting thing that's happened to me at one of these events in years." "You're very good at it. The pretending, I mean." "Who says I was pretending?" She laughed, thinking he was joking. "Right. Like someone like you would actually be with someone like me." "Someone like you?" "You know. Ordinary. Brooklyn apartment, borrowed dress, state school education." "Is that how you see yourself? Or is that how he made you see yourself?" Harper was quiet for a moment. "Maybe both. Would you like to know what I see?" She looked up at him, curious despite herself. "I see someone who had the courage to ask a stranger for help rather than face humiliation. I see someone who clearly has talent. You should see how your eyes lit up when I mentioned your work. I see someone who's genuine in a room full of people performing, and I see someone who's letting one pathetic man's opinion define her worth. You got all that from 5 minutes? I'm observant. It served me well in business." "What kind of business?" "The boring kind," he said, deflecting. "Tell me about your design work." For the next hour, they talked on the terrace. Harper forgot to be nervous, forgot she was in a borrowed dress, forgot everything except the way this stranger listened to her like what she said mattered. She told him about her vision for spaces, how she could see what a room could be rather than what it was, how she loved working with constraints because it forced creativity. "You really do need an office redesigned," Grayson said suddenly. "What?" "My office. It's cold. Efficient but lifeless. I'd like to hire you to redesign it." "You don't have to do that. You've already done enough." "This isn't charity, Harper. I actually need a designer, and you're clearly talented. Give me your card." I don't have cards yet." He pulled out his phone. "Number then." She gave it to him, thinking she'd never hear from him again. This was just a kind stranger extending her pretense a bit longer. "I should go," she said finally. "Early morning tomorrow. Thank you again for everything." "Harper." He stopped her as she turned to leave. "He was wrong about you. You do belong, just not in his small, limited world. Do you think Harper should trust him? Let me know in the comments. 3 days later, Harper's phone rang with an unknown number. Harper Lane? Yes? This is James Chen, assistant to Mr. Wolf. He'd like to schedule a consultation for his office redesign. Would Thursday at 2 p.m. work? Harper nearly dropped her phone. He'd actually called. Yes. Thursday works. Where should I meet him? Wolf Enterprises, 44th floor of the Chrysler Building. I'll have your name at security. Wolf Enterprises, the Chrysler Building. Harper Googled it immediately after hanging up and felt her stomach drop. Grayson Wolf, CEO of Wolf Enterprises. Net worth, $2.8 billion. Known for turning struggling companies into gold, for his ruthless business tactics, and for his notable absence from social events since a very public betrayal by his former fiancée and business partner 2 years ago. She'd asked a billionaire to be her fake boyfriend. Thursday came too quickly. Harper stood outside the Chrysler Building in her best professional outfit, which still felt inadequate, holding her portfolio with sweaty palms. The elevator ride to the 44th floor felt endless. The reception area was exactly what she'd expected, all glass and chrome and cold efficiency. Beautiful in its way, but utterly impersonal. Ms. Lane? A young Asian man appeared. I'm James. Mr. Wolf is expecting you. He led her through a maze of offices to massive double doors. Inside, Grayson stood with his back to her, looking out at the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. Harper. He turned, and his smile was genuine. Thank you for coming. Thank you for calling. Though now I know who you are, I'm slightly mortified about Saturday night. Why? I asked Grayson Wolf to pretend to be my boyfriend. You must have thought I was insane. I thought you were refreshing. Do you know how long it's been since someone talked to me without knowing who I was? Without wanting something? I did want something, a fake boyfriend. For 5 minutes. Not my money, not my connections, not my influence. Just 5 minutes of pretending. He gestured around his office. So what do you think? Harper looked around properly for the first time. The space was massive, with incredible bones, the original Art Deco details of the Chrysler Building, the spectacular view. But Grayson was right, it was cold, efficient. A workspace, not a space that worked. It's intimidating, she said honestly. That's the point usually. But I'm tired of intimidating. I want something different. Different how? Warmer. More human. A place where creativity happens, not just transactions. Harper pulled out her sketchpad. Tell me how you actually work. Not how you think you should work, but how you really do. For the next 2 hours, she interviewed him about his habits, his preferences, his vision. She made sketches, took measurements, asked questions no designer had asked before. Where did he think best? What made him comfortable? What did he want to feel when he walked in each morning? You're different from other designers I've worked with, he said. How? They all tried to give me what they thought a billionaire CEO should have. You're trying to give me what I actually need. That's the job, seeing what could be, not what should be. Their meetings became regular. Every Thursday, Harper would come to discuss the redesign, but the conversations increasingly veered into personal territory. Grayson told her about building his company from nothing, about the betrayal that had made him retreat from the world, his fiancée selling company secrets to a competitor, his best friend and business partner facilitating it. Harper told him about growing up in Ohio, about coming to New York with big dreams, about the slow erosion of confidence that Marcus had caused. He convinced me I was lucky he chose me, she admitted one afternoon, that I should be grateful someone from his world wanted me at all. He was the lucky one, Grayson said firmly, and too stupid to know it. The office transformation took 2 months. Harper poured everything into it, creating a space that was still professional but warm, efficient but welcoming. She kept the Art Deco elements but softened them with warm woods, rich textures, and clever lighting. She created different zones, a traditional desk area for focused work, a comfortable seating area for creative thinking, a standing desk by the window for phone calls. It's perfect, Grayson said when she revealed the finished space. It's exactly what I didn't know I needed. That's my job. Have dinner with me. What? Dinner. Not as client and designer, just as Grayson and Harper. I don't think that's a good idea. Why? Because you're you and I'm me. We're back to that? I thought we'd established that Marcus was wrong. Marcus was wrong about my worth as a person. But that doesn't change the fact that you're a billionaire CEO and I'm a freelance designer from Ohio. I'm a man who enjoys talking to you. You're a woman whose company I value. Everything else is just details. Very expensive details. Money is just money, Harper. I have more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What I don't have is someone who looks at me and sees Grayson, not Wolf Enterprises. Against her better judgment, she agreed to dinner. One dinner became two, became weekly occurrences. They weren't dates, Harper told herself, just two friends sharing meals. But friends didn't look at each other the way Grayson looked at her. Friends didn't make her heart race when they smiled. 3 months into their friendship, everything changed. Harper had just landed her biggest client yet, a boutique hotel wanting a complete redesign. She'd called Grayson immediately, too excited to wait. "That's incredible," he'd said. "We need to celebrate. Dinner at Le Bernardin." "That's too expensive. Harper, I'm a billionaire. Let me celebrate your success properly." She'd worn her best dress, not borrowed this time, but bought with her earnings from his office project. Still not designer, but hers. Dinner had been perfect. Grayson had been so proud of her, asking about her vision for the hotel, her plans for expansion. For once, Harper felt like she truly belonged at a fancy restaurant, not because of what she wore, but because of what she'd achieved. They were walking through Central Park afterward when Grayson stopped suddenly. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm falling for you. Have been since that night at the gala, and I know all the reasons why this is complicated, but I can't pretend anymore." "Grayson, I know what you're going to say. We're from different worlds. But Harper, you've redesigned my world entirely, not just my office, my life. You've made me remember why I built my company, what success actually means. You've made me want to be more than just successful." "I'm scared," Harper admitted. "Marcus made me feel so small. What if I'm not Marcus? I will never make you feel less than extraordinary, because that's what you are to me." He kissed her then, gentle and sure, and Harper felt something she hadn't in so long, worthy of being chosen. But fairy tales don't exist in New York. 2 weeks later, Harper woke to her phone exploding with notifications. A gossip blog had published photos of her and Grayson at dinner, at the park, entering her apartment building. The headline screamed, "Billionaire Grayson Wolf's mystery woman, from nobody to somebody." The article was cruel, detailing her failed relationship with Marcus, suggesting she was a gold digger who targeted Grayson at the gala, questioning what he could possibly see in a nobody from Ohio. Worse, they'd contacted Marcus for comment. He'd been quoted saying, "Harper always had ambitions above her station. I'm not surprised she's found someone else to fund her little design dreams." Harper felt sick. This was exactly what she'd feared. When Grayson called, she didn't answer. When he came to her apartment, she didn't open the door. "Harper, please, let me in. Let me explain." "Explain what? That you knew this would happen? That you turned me into a spectacle?" "I didn't know about the article, but I don't care about it either." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one being called a gold digger. Then let me fix it." "How? By throwing money at it? By using your influence? That just proves their point. By standing by you, by showing them they're wrong, or by confirming I need a billionaire to defend me." She didn't speak to him for a week. During that time, the story grew. Photographers camped outside her building. Her clients started asking questions. One even cancelled, citing concerns about the attention. But then something unexpected happened. Grayson gave an interview, his first in 2 years. "Yes, I'm seeing Harper Lane," he said directly to the camera. "And yes, she's a designer from Ohio without a trust fund or a family name. She's also the most talented designer I've worked with, the most genuine person I know, and the only woman who's ever seen me as just Grayson. If that threatens people who measure worth by bank accounts and pedigrees, that's their limitation, not ours. But what about the speculation that she targeted you? Harper didn't know who I was when she asked for my help that night. She was just a woman facing an uncomfortable situation with courage and creativity. She's never asked me for anything except to be myself, and if anyone has been pursuing anyone, it's been me pursuing her. Why give this interview now? Because someone I care about is being hurt by lies and speculation. Because I want to be clear, Harper Lane doesn't need me. She's building her own success. I'm just fortunate enough to watch it happen. The interview went viral, but more importantly, it made Harper realize something. Subscribe if you believe in unexpected fairy tales. She showed up at his office the next day. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did. You were being hurt because of me. I was being hurt because of them, their prejudices, their assumptions. Harper, I need you to understand something. My money, my name, my company, none of it matters if I can't protect the people I love." Love? I love you, Harper. Not because you redesigned my office or because you make me look good at galas. I love you because you see spaces and make them better, because you asked a stranger for help with such bravery, because you've never once looked at me with dollar signs in your eyes. I love you too, she admitted, but I'm terrified of becoming just Grayson Wolf's girlfriend, of losing myself in your world. Then don't. Keep building your business. Keep being Harper Lane, interior designer. Be with me as yourself, not as who you think you should be. What about the media? They'll move on to the next story. They always do. He was right. Within a month, another scandal had replaced them. Harper's business actually grew from the attention. Several clients specifically sought her out after seeing her work on Grayson's office in the interview. 6 months later, at the same gala where they'd met, Harper walked in on Grayson's arm. This time she wasn't in a borrowed dress. She'd bought her own, not because she needed to impress anyone, but because she wanted to. Marcus was there again, this time alone. Veronica had left him for a tech entrepreneur. "Harper," he said, approaching them. "You look well." "I am well." "I heard about your business, the hotel chain contract. Impressive." "Thank you." "I also heard about you too." He looked at Grayson with something like envy. "I suppose I should congratulate you." "No need," Grayson said coolly. "Your loss was my gain." "I realize that now," Marcus said, surprising them both. "Harper, I was wrong about everything. You didn't need to fit into my world. I needed to expand mine." After he left, Harper looked at Grayson. "That was unexpected. People can surprise you. Like when a stranger agrees to be your fake boyfriend. Best spontaneous decision I ever made. Even better than the Morrison acquisition. The Morrison acquisition made me rich. You made me happy. There's no comparison." A year later, Grayson proposed in Harper's newly opened design studio, the one she'd funded entirely herself, refusing his offers of investment. "I want to be clear," he said, on one knee in the space she'd created. "I'm not asking you to become Mrs. Wolf. I'm asking if Harper Lane will let me become Mr. Lane Wolf if you prefer. I'm asking if the woman who redesigned my entire life will let me spend the rest of mine helping her redesign the world." She said yes. Their wedding was small, intimate, exactly what Harper wanted. Not what a billionaire's wedding should be, but what their wedding needed to be. Sophia was her maid of honor. "I knew it would work out," she said, "the moment I saw him look at you that night." "You saw us?" "Everyone saw you, the way he protected you from Marcus, the way you leaned into him. It was like watching a movie. It felt like one too. Still does sometimes. That's the best kind of love story, the one that feels too good to be true but is." In his vows, Grayson said, "Harper, you asked me to pretend to be your boyfriend for 5 minutes. I've been pretending ever since, pretending I could ever be good enough for you, but I promise to spend every day trying to make it real, to be the man who deserves the woman who transforms everything she touches." Harper replied, "Grayson, you gave me the courage to see my own worth when I'd forgotten it. You've never asked me to be anything but myself. You've made me believe in fairy tales, not because you're Prince Charming, but because you're real, flawed, and choosing to love me anyway." Marcus sent a wedding gift, a note that simply said, "I was a fool, be happy." They were. Harper's business grew into one of New York's premier design firms. She never took Grayson's money, though she did occasionally take his advice. Her work was featured in Architectural Digest, praised for its warmth and innovation. Grayson's company continued to thrive, but his priority had shifted. He was home for dinner, present for life, no longer using work to avoid feeling. "Do you ever think about that night?" Harper asked on their 5th anniversary, standing on the same terrace where they'd first talked. "Every day. What if I'd asked someone else? Then I'd have missed the best thing that ever happened to me. All because I was desperate? All because you were brave? There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Desperate is running away. Brave is running towards something, even if it's a stranger who might say no." "You didn't say no." "How could I? You looked at me and saw someone who could help. Do you know how long it had been since someone looked at me and saw anything other than money? And now? Now you look at me and see home. And that's worth more than all the money in the world." Their daughter was born 2 years later, Sophie, named after the friend who'd brought them together. She had Harper's creativity and Grayson's determination, a combination that would prove formidable. "Tell me the story," Sophie would demand at bedtime. "Which story?" Harper would ask, though she knew. "How you met Daddy." "Well, once upon a time, Mommy needed someone to pretend to be her boyfriend. And Daddy said yes. He did, even though he didn't know me." "Why?" "Because sometimes," Grayson would say, joining them, "the best things in life start with taking a chance on a stranger. Like when I shared my cookies with the new girl at school. Exactly like that." Years passed. Harper's firm designed spaces across the country. Grayson's company evolved into something more human, more creative, inspired by Harper's approach to transformation. They were featured in magazines not as Billionaire and his designer wife, but as the couple revolutionizing how we think about space and success. Marcus eventually found his own happiness with a teacher who challenged him to be better. He sent Harper a message years later. "Thank you for showing me what I was missing by showing me what I lost." At their 10th anniversary party, held in the ballroom where they'd met, Harper and Grayson stood before their friends and family. 10 years ago, Harper said, I asked a stranger to pretend to be my boyfriend. I thought I was asking for 5 minutes of protection from humiliation. Instead, Grayson continued, she was offering me a lifetime of transformation. From pretend to real, from cold to warm, from successful to happy. We both got more than we bargained for, Harper laughed. The best deals always work that way, Grayson replied. As they danced, Sophie running around their feet, surrounded by the life they'd built together, Harper whispered, Thank you for saying yes that night. Thank you for asking. Even though I didn't know who you were, especially because you didn't know. You saw me, not my net worth. That's the rarest gift anyone's ever given me. You gave me something rare too. What? The belief that I was worth choosing, not as a project to be improved or a trophy to be displayed, but as myself. You were always worth choosing, Harper. I'm just grateful I got to be the one who chose you. We chose each other. The best kind of choice. The party continued around them. Friends, family, colleagues, even some former skeptics who'd become believers. But for Harper and Grayson, the noise faded. They were back on that terrace, two strangers taking a chance, except now they were home. So, Grayson said with a smile, want to pretend to be my wife? I don't have to pretend, Harper laughed. I am your wife. My real wife who started as my fake girlfriend. The best stories always have unexpected beginnings. And perfect endings? No, Harper said, looking around at their life. Messy, complicated, beautiful. Perfect middles, because the story's not over. What comes next? Whatever we design together. And they did. Design businesses, design homes, design a family, design a life that neither could have imagined when a desperate woman asked a stranger for 5 minutes of pretending. Because sometimes the best things, the real things, start with fiction, and become truth through the simple act of choosing to make them real. The week after their 10th anniversary party, Harper received an unexpected call. It was from the White House. "Mrs. Wolfe, this is Director Patterson from the National Endowment for the Arts. The First Lady would like to discuss a potential project with you." Harper nearly dropped her phone. "The First Lady?" "Yes, she's launching an initiative to redesign public spaces in underserved communities. Your work combining accessibility with beauty has caught her attention. Would you be available to meet next week?" Harper's hands were shaking when she told Grayson that evening. "The White House wants me to lead a national design initiative." "Of course they do," Grayson said, not looking up from where he was helping Sophie with her homework. "You're the best designer in the country." "Grayson, this is serious." He looked up then, saw her nervousness. "Harper, you've redesigned offices for Fortune 500 companies. You've transformed entire hotels. Why is this different?" "Because it's the White House. Because it would mean traveling constantly. Because you still don't quite believe you deserve it." She was quiet, knowing he was right. "Harper, do you remember what you told me when I was hesitating about the European expansion? That was business. You said, the only difference between the life you have and the life you want is the courage to reach for it. This is your reach. What about Sophie? What about your work? Sophie has 2 parents, and my work. Harper, your success has never threatened mine. It's enhanced it." The meeting at the White House went better than Harper could have imagined. The First Lady had done her homework, referencing specific projects Harper had done, understanding her philosophy of democratic design. Beautiful spaces shouldn't be reserved for the wealthy. "We want to transform one public space in each state," the First Lady explained. "Libraries, community centers, health clinics, places that serve everyone but are often forgotten in terms of design. That's 50 projects. 51, including DC. It would be a 5-year commitment. You'd lead a team of designers, have a substantial budget, and complete creative freedom within practical constraints." "Why me?" "Because you understand that design isn't about impressing people. It's about serving them. Your work makes people feel valued regardless of their economic status." Harper accepted, but with conditions. She would maintain her firm, work would accommodate Sophie's school schedule, and Grayson would be involved in the business planning side. "You want your husband involved?" the director asked, surprised. "My husband taught me that the best transformations happen when vision meets strategy. I have vision, he has strategy. Together we're unstoppable." The project launched 6 months later with a community center in Detroit. Harper had assembled a team of diverse designers, many from the communities they'd be serving. Grayson had structured the financing to ensure sustainability long after the initial renovation. The opening was emotional. Residents who'd used the rundown center for decades walked into a space that was bright, functional, and beautiful. An elderly woman grabbed Harper's hands with tears in her eyes. "This makes us feel like we matter," she said, "like we deserve beautiful things too." Harper cried the entire flight home. "It's working," she told Grayson. "It's really working. Did you doubt it would? Sometimes I still can't believe any of this is real. That I went from being told I was too ordinary to designing spaces for the White House." "You were never ordinary. Marcus just needed you to be small so he could feel big. And you? I need you to be exactly who you are. Brilliant, driven, occasionally insecure, always extraordinary." As the initiative grew, so did the attention. Harper was featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at conferences, offered book deals. But success brought challenges too. Sophie, now 8, came home from school one day upset. "Lily said I only got the lead in the play because my mom is famous." Harper's heart sank. This was what she'd feared, her success affecting Sophie. "What do you think?" Harper asked carefully. "I think I got it because I practiced really hard. But what if she's right?" Grayson sat down beside his daughter. "Sophie, do you know how Mom became successful? She worked hard. She worked hard when everyone told her she wasn't good enough. She kept designing when she could barely afford materials. She built her business without taking a penny from me even when I offered. Your mom's success isn't about fame. It's about never giving up. But people will always think things, Harper said. What matters is what you know. Did you earn that part? Yes. Then own it, the way I had to learn to own my success. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Harper found herself looking at old photos from before she met Grayson. The girl in those pictures looked so unsure, so small. Do you miss her? Grayson asked, looking over her shoulder. Who? The Harper who didn't know her worth yet. Sometimes. Life was simpler when I believed I was ordinary. But less true. Yes, less true. She turned to him. Do you miss the Grayson from before? The cold, isolated workaholic? Never. He was successful. He was empty. Success without connection is just accumulation. The billionaire who'd forgotten how to feel and the designer who'd forgotten her worth had found in each other not what they'd expected, but exactly what they'd needed. All because of 5 minutes of pretending that became a lifetime of choosing each other, over and over for real. Their conversation was interrupted by Harper's phone. It was James, Grayson's assistant, who'd become more like family over the years. Sorry to call so late, but there's something you should know. Marcus Bradford has been reaching out to media outlets. He's shopping a tell-all about his relationship with Harper. Harper felt her stomach drop. Even after all these years, Marcus could still find ways to hurt her. What's he saying? Grayson asked, his voice dangerously quiet. That Harper used him to learn how to navigate high society, that she planned to trade up from the beginning, that their relationship was her practice run for landing someone like you, Mr. Wolf. That's ridiculous, Harper said. I was devastated when he left me. We know that, James said, but he's painting a different picture, says he has texts, emails. From 10 years ago, why now? His latest business venture failed. He needs money. Grayson was already on his laptop, typing rapidly. James, set up a meeting with our legal team tomorrow and get me Marcus's current financial situation. Grayson, I'm not going to destroy him, Harper. Just remind him that actions have consequences. The story broke 3 days later, but not the way Marcus intended. Grayson had gotten ahead of it, releasing a statement along with the actual emails from that time period, ones where Marcus clearly stated Harper wasn't sophisticated enough for his world. But more powerful than Grayson's response was Harper's. She posted a single photo on her rarely used social media, her first design sketch from after the breakup, dated the week Marcus left her. The caption read, "The best thing Marcus Bradford ever did was tell me I wasn't enough. It made me prove I was more than enough. Thank you for the motivation, Marcus. I hope you find the peace that's clearly eluding you." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of women shared their own stories of being told they weren't enough, only to prove otherwise. The hashtag, or more than enough, trended for days. Marcus's tell-all died before publication. No publisher wanted to touch it after Harper's graceful response and the public's clear support for her. "You handled that perfectly," Grayson told her. "I learned from the best. You taught me that the best revenge is success and grace. When did I teach you that?" "Every day. In how you handle competitors, critics, everyone who doubts you. I handle them by having you beside me. We handle them together." What would you have done in Harper's position? Let me know in the comments. The National Design Initiative was in its 3rd year when Harper discovered she was pregnant again. She and Grayson had been trying for 2 years, had almost given up hope. "Are you sure?" Grayson asked, holding the pregnancy test with shaking hands. 4 tests, sure. He pulled her into his arms, both of them crying. Sophie, now 11, found them like that. "Are you okay? Did someone die?" "No, sweetheart," Harper laughed through her tears. "Someone's coming." "Coming? Who's— Oh my God, are you pregnant?" "Language," both parents said automatically. "Sorry, but seriously? I'm going to be a big sister?" "You are." Sophie's excitement lasted approximately until Harper's morning sickness started. "You throw up a lot," she observed one morning. "It's worth it," Harper managed between bouts of nausea. Was I worth it? Every second. Even the throwing up? Especially the throwing up. The pregnancy was difficult. Harper was older now, 41, and the doctor labeled it high risk. She had to cut back on travel for the initiative, delegating more to her team. "I feel like I'm failing," she told Grayson one night, frustrated by bed rest orders. "You're growing a human. That's not failure. But the projects are being handled by the incredible team you trained. Harper, you've spent years believing you had to do everything yourself to prove your worth. Let others help. Let others shine. Like you let me shine? We shine together. Different lights, same constellation." The baby came early, as Sophie had decided to make her entrance during a particularly important board meeting for Grayson. He left mid-presentation, just as he'd left the contract signing years ago for the triplets. "Sir, the Japanese investors," someone called after him, "tell them my wife is having our baby. If they don't understand that priority, I don't want their money." Their son, Oliver, was born healthy, despite being 3 weeks early. He had Harper's eyes and Grayson's stubborn chin. "He's perfect," Sophie declared, holding her brother for the first time. "Can we keep him?" "That's the plan," Grayson laughed. "Good. I've waited 11 years for this. I have so much to teach him." "Like what?" "Like how to have the coolest parents ever. It's a burden, but someone has to carry it." As Oliver grew, the family dynamic shifted beautifully. Sophie was a devoted big sister, perhaps overly protective. She'd lecture anyone who came near Oliver about proper hand sanitization and safe holding techniques. "You've created a monster," Harper told Grayson, as Sophie interrogated yet another visitor. "She gets the protective instinct from you. The intensity is all you. Together, we've created the perfect bodyguard for our son." The design initiative was entering its final year, with 43 spaces completed. Each opening was emotional, but none more so than the one in Harper's hometown in Ohio. They'd renovated the library where Harper had spent countless hours as a child, dreaming of bigger things. Her high school art teacher, Mrs. Patterson, now retired, attended the opening. "I always knew you'd do something special, Harper," she said. "But this, changing the entire country's approach to public space, this is beyond what I imagined. You told me once that art wasn't about making pretty things. It was about making people feel something. You remembered that? I built my entire career on it." Marcus was there too, surprisingly. He'd moved back to Ohio after his latest business failure, was teaching real estate courses at the community college. "Harper," he said, approaching carefully, "congratulations on all of this." "Thank you. I mean it. What you've built, what you've become. I was such a fool. We were young. I was arrogant and wrong about everything." "Marcus, no, please, let me say this. I told you that you didn't belong in my world. The truth was, my world was too small for you. You were always meant for something bigger. I was meant for something different. Not bigger or smaller, just different. With Grayson. With myself first. Grayson came after I figured out who I was." Marcus nodded. "He's a lucky man. We're both lucky." She meant it. Watching Grayson across the room, holding Oliver, while explaining something to Sophie with his serious expression that made her laugh. This was luck, or fate, or choice. Maybe all three. "Mom," Sophie called. "Dad's trying to explain cryptocurrency to Oliver. Please, save your son." Harper laughed, moving toward her family. "He's 6 months old, Grayson. Never too early for financial literacy. He can't even say mama yet, but when he does, he'll understand blockchain technology. You're ridiculous. Ridiculously in love with you." That was terrible, terribly true. They were interrupted by a young woman, probably early 20s, approaching nervously. "Ms. Lane, I mean Mrs. Wolfe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "I was in a relationship where I was constantly told I wasn't enough. Too poor, too plain, too ordinary. I saw your story, your success, and it gave me the courage to leave. I'm in design school now." Harper felt tears prick her eyes. "What's your name?" "Amanda." "Amanda, can I tell you something? The person who tells you you're not enough is usually afraid you're too much. Too much talent, Too much potential. Too much for them to handle. Don't let anyone's limitations become your own. After Amanda left, Grayson pulled Harper close. You know you change lives, right? Not just spaces, lives. We change lives. You changed mine first. Mutual transformation, the best kind. The final project of the initiative was in New York, renovating the community center in Brooklyn where Harper had lived when she first moved to the city. It had come full circle. The opening was massive, with media from around the world. The First Lady attended, as did numerous celebrities and dignitaries. But Harper's favorite attendee was Mrs. Chen, her first client who'd taken a chance on an unknown designer. I knew you were special, Mrs. Chen said, the way you looked at my tiny apartment and saw possibilities. You've been doing the same thing ever since, just on a bigger scale. You gave me my start. You gave yourself your start. I just opened a door. During her speech, Harper looked out at the crowd. Her team, her community partners, her family. Grayson stood in the front row with Oliver in a carrier, Sophie beside him taking photos. 5 years ago, I stood in the White House, terrified I wasn't qualified for this initiative. I was a freelance designer from Ohio who'd been told I was too ordinary for greatness. But someone once told me, she looked at Grayson, that ordinary is just another word for relatable. And relating to people, understanding their needs, seeing their worth, that's not ordinary. That's extraordinary. The crowd erupted in applause. Every space we've transformed has transformed us back. Every community we've served has served us lessons in resilience, creativity, and hope. This isn't the end of the initiative. It's the beginning of a movement. Beautiful, functional design isn't a luxury. It's a right. And we're going to keep fighting for that right. Later, at the after-party, Harper found a quiet moment with Grayson on a balcony overlooking the city. 51 spaces in 5 years, he said. You did it. We did it. Your business model made it sustainable. Your vision made it matter. They stood in comfortable silence, Oliver sleeping against Grayson's chest, Sophie inside charming diplomats with her 11-year-old wisdom. What's next? Grayson asked. I've been thinking about that. And? Design schools. Scholarships for students from underserved communities, teaching the next generation that design is about service, not status. The Harper Lane Design Fellowship, the Lane Wolf Fellowship, partners, remember? Always partners, even when I'm difficult? Especially then. Difficult means you're growing, comfortable means you're stagnant. I'm never comfortable. Good. Comfortable is overrated. Subscribe if you believe in the power of transformation. The fellowship launched the following year with 50 students, one from each state. Harper taught masterclasses, Grayson handled the business side, and Sophie, now 13, became the unofficial social media manager. Mom, your Instagram is tragic, Sophie declared. No one wants to see just buildings. They want to see the story. Then tell the story. Sophie did, creating content that showed not just the transformed spaces, but the people in them. The communities changed, the students learning. The fellowship's social media exploded, reaching millions. I should hire you, Harper told her daughter. You can't afford me. Sophie, what? I know my worth. You taught me that. She had a point. The success of the fellowship led to a book deal, not a memoir, but a design philosophy book. Harper wrote it during Oliver's naps, in planes between cities, in the quiet hours before dawn. Design for Democracy, Beautiful Spaces for Everyone became a bestseller, but more importantly, it became required reading in design schools across the country. At the book launch, held in the redesigned Brooklyn Community Center, Harper was surprised to see Marcus in the audience. I didn't know you were in New York, she said. I'm not. I came for this. Bought your book. Read it twice. You quote me. I do? Page 47. Someone once told me I was too ordinary for his world. He was right. I was too ordinary for his small world. I was meant for the whole world. You remember that page number? I've read that passage 100 times. Harper, I need to thank you. For what? For becoming who you are despite me, maybe even because of me. Your success is the mirror I needed to see my own failures. Marcus, I'm in therapy now, working on myself, trying to become someone who builds others up instead of tearing them down. That's wonderful. It's necessary. I have a daughter now, 2 years old. I don't want her to grow up with a father who makes her feel small. What's her name? Grace, after your middle name, if that's okay. Harper was speechless. I wanted her to have a name that reminded me to be better, to see worth in everyone, especially the people I might have once overlooked. After Marcus left, Grayson found Harper crying in the bathroom. "Are you okay?" He named his daughter after me. I heard. The man who said I was nothing named his daughter after me. Because you became everything. Not to prove him wrong, but to prove yourself right. It's just so... full circle? Redemptive, like maybe all the pain had a purpose. It did. It led you to me. To this. To changing the actual world. Oliver, now 3, toddled in. "Mama crying." "Happy tears, baby." "Oh, okay. Can I have a cookie?" Life continued its beautiful chaos. Sophie started high school, brilliant and confident in ways Harper had never been at that age. Oliver began preschool, charming everyone with his combination of Harper's creativity and Grayson's intensity. The fellowship expanded internationally. The book became a movement. Harper's firm grew to 50 employees, all trained in her philosophy of democratic design. But the biggest change came when Grayson decided to restructure his company. "I want to follow your model," he told Harper one evening. "What model?" "Business as service, not domination. What if instead of buying struggling companies to strip them, we bought them to transform them, like you transform spaces? That's a complete reversal of your business model." "My business model was built by a man who didn't believe in anything beyond profit. I'm not that man anymore." "Because of me. Because of who I became when I met you. The man who said yes to pretending and discovered what was real." The restructuring took 2 years and cost millions in immediate profits. But within 5 years, Wolf Enterprises had become the most sought-after partner for struggling businesses. They didn't just invest money, they invested in transformation. "We're basically marriage counselors for companies," Grayson joked to Harper. "Well, you did learn from the best relationship rehabilitation." "Ours? Ours was never broken, just waiting to begin." At Sophie's high school graduation, she gave a speech as valedictorian. "My parents met when my mom asked my dad to pretend to be her boyfriend. It's a funny story they love to tell, but what I've learned from watching them is that all love requires a little pretending at first, pretending to be braver than you are, pretending you're not scared, pretending you know what you're doing, and then one day you realize you're not pretending anymore. You actually are brave. You actually aren't scared. You actually do know what you're doing. My parents taught me that becoming is just pretending until it's real." Harper and Grayson cried through the entire speech. "We did good," Harper whispered. "We did amazing. She's going to change the world. Like her mother. And her father. We're a world-changing family." "The Lane Wolves," Oliver piped up, having insisted on attending his sister's graduation despite being only 6. "We make things better." "Yes," Harper agreed, looking at her family. "We make things better." That summer, they returned to the Astoria Hotel ballroom where it all began. It was another charity gala, this time for the fellowship. The same crystal chandeliers, the same elegant crowd, but everything else had changed. Harper entered on Grayson's arm, not in a borrowed dress, but in one designed by a fellowship student. She moved through the room with confidence, no longer apologizing for taking up space, but commanding it. Marcus was there with his wife, a kindergarten teacher who radiated warmth and little grace. "She looks like you," Harper told Marcus, seeing the little girl's determined expression. "God help her," Marcus laughed, "but hopefully she gets her mother's heart. And her namesake's strength," his wife added, smiling at Harper. Veronica was there too, now on her 4th husband, looking older and harder despite the obvious cosmetic work. "Harper," she said, approaching with what might have been genuine humility. "You look wonderful. Thank you. I mean it. You look fulfilled." "I am. I'm envious." "Of what?" "You found what matters. I'm still looking." It's never too late to stop looking outside and start looking within. Is that from your book? That's from experience. As the evening progressed, Harper found herself standing in the same spot where she'd grabbed Grayson's arm 15 years ago. "Thinking about that night?" he asked, appearing beside her with champagne. "Thinking about how terrified I was. And now? Now I'm terrified of different things. Oliver starting school, Sophie choosing a college, the next book deadline. But not of being not enough? Never that. Not anymore. Good. Because you're more than enough. You're everything." They were interrupted by a young woman, probably 25, approaching nervously. "Excuse me, Ms. Lane, Mr. Wolfe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to thank you." "For what?" Harper asked. "I was at a gala like this 5 years ago. My ex was there with his new girlfriend, and I was alone and humiliated. Then I remembered your story, so I asked a stranger to pretend to be my boyfriend." "What happened?" Grayson asked, amused. "We've been married for 2 years now," she laughed. "He never stopped pretending until it became real." After she left, Harper and Grayson looked at each other. "We started something," Harper said. "A movement of fake boyfriends. A movement of taking chances, of asking for help, of being brave enough to grab a stranger's arm. The best kind of movement." As the gala continued, Harper watched the ripple effects of their story. The fellowship students networking with established designers, the transformed spaces featured in the silent auction, Sophie organizing the younger attendees for a TikTok about democratic design, Oliver charming everyone by explaining his mom's work with 6-year-old authority. If you've made it to the end of this story, remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, even from a stranger. And sometimes pretending can reveal the deepest truths. Have you ever taken a chance that changed your life? Share your story in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Ring the notification bell for more stories about unexpected love and finding your worth. Remember, you are not defined by who couldn't see your value, but by who you become when you finally see it yourself. Until next time, may your real life be even better than any fairy tale you could imagine.